What's up, poker players? Hope you guys are out there crushing it on the tables. In this video, we're going to take a look at this cash game session, which we were playing on the side of some tournaments, and we will be looking at the tournament hands as well. Only 308 hands in this cash game session, but had a very solid win of $231. Let's jump into some of the big hands. This one already looks interesting. We have 4-9 offsuit playing from the big blind, and somehow this made it into the big hands. Let's see what happens. We get a limp from the hijack seat, a recreational player, pretty weak numbers, only 33 hands on this player. I just checked back. Let's see a flop, and that is a great flop for our hand. We have top and bottom pairs, and I lead out for $1.80. Our opponent has pretty low fold percentages on the flop, turn, and river. Yes, this is a very small sample size, but we can already tell that our opponent is pretty much a call station, and they do not disappoint us and make a call here. We wind up filling up on the turn, lead out for $425, more than 2/3 pot, and our opponent once again makes a call. There's now $14.60 in the pot. Our opponent has a little bit less than 32 left in their stack. Let's try to maximize their value. I bet $11, and our opponent jams the rest of their stack in. Not gonna fold a full house here, make the call, and they jammed 5s on the river. Thank you for that donation. What do you really expect to fold at this point of the hand for an extra $20? You're only gonna get calls from hands that beat you. Save your money, just make the call. I don't know why people do this, but they do it a lot. But thank you. And now we are at the 100 NL table. We have pocket kings playing from the small blind. Folds to the hijack seat, who opens to $2.50, 2.5x. I put in a 3-bet, make it $9 to go, and we get a call. $19 in the pot pre-flop, and the flop is queen high, two-tone. We have the backdoor club draw, as well as the kings over the board. I just checked back on such a dry board, hopefully getting hands to continuation bet from our opponent, but our opponent checks back as well. The turn is the 10 of spades. Now this is a pretty draw-heavy board. There are even more straight possibilities, flush possibilities, so I am not going to check back this time. I bet 2/3 pot, and we get a call from our opponent. The river is the 9 of spades. That improves a couple of the straight draws. I don't really think our opponent would have a hand like Jack 8 or King Jack in the range. The King Jack is going to be hard to have from this opponent, especially when we have 2 kings in our hand giving us blockers against that hand. I think we're going to wind up seeing a lot of hands like Ace Jack, Ace King, maybe an Ace Queen that slow played the flop. So I checked back, trying to induce some bluffs from the Ace Kings and Ace Jacks in our opponent's range. There is the possibility that we would run into a spade flush, but that is going to be a very small percentage of our opponent's range. And they bet $31 on the river. That's a big time bet, but I am not going to be folding in this spot. I do make the call, and we take down a big pot with the pocket kings against the river bluff. I think we pretty much maximized our value on that hand. Let's see that big hand of the session. It's going to be with pocket aces at the 200 NL table. We are playing from the button. Full drawn to us, and we open to 3x, $6, and we get a 3-bet from the big blind. Big blind is a solid player. Could be a regular up here at the 200 NL. We don't have a ton of hands. Pretty high re-steal percentage from the big blind. And now we have the option to put in a 4-bet or just make a call here. And I see that our opponent has a 0% fold to 4-bet. 0%. So that pretty much answers that question. We're going to be putting in a 4-bet here to a player who hasn't folded to a 4-bet yet. Make it $54 to go. And there is the jam all in. Let's get the rest of our stack in with the aces. We are up against jacks. Just have to avoid a jack or now a 10 going into the river. We fill up, and we take down a pot of $407 with the full house aces over queens. Let's take a look at our overall graph so far. If you guys remember, a couple weeks ago, we hit our high point right here, and we had a little bit of a down slope there. But since then, we've had a solid rebound, not quite up to where we were, but working our way back up. I'll give you guys an update on the bankroll at the end of this this video. But let's take a look at some hands from the tournament session that we were playing alongside these cash games. A lot of tournaments over the last 3 days. I'd say there's probably about 30 to 40 tournaments. No huge cashes. We did have one final table in a pretty large tournament. That video will be coming out soon. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that video. Here's one hand from that same tournament that we final tabled. This was down to when we were 2 tables. Our chip stack is a little bit bigger than 10 big blinds, and we have ace queen playing from the small blind. We get an open from the hijack seat to 3x, and I put in a 3-bet here, jam the rest of our stack in with the ace queen. We get called by a king queen. We are about a 75% favorite here, and we hit an ace on the flop. Now a 98% favorite. We have to avoid running cards, and that 9 locks it up for us, and we double up going into the final table. This is a fun one from the same tournament. We have about 15 big blinds in our stack and are playing ace 7 diamonds from the cutoff. Right before the final table, going to be stealing a lot of hands, trying to pick up those blinds and antes and adding to our stack. So I put in a raise, make it 65, 150 to go, a little bit larger than 2x. We get a call from the button, and we see a flop of 8 high 2-tone, 2 diamonds on the board. We have a gut shot to a 6, as well as the nut flush draw and the ace over the board. I see that our opponent has continuation bet on every flop so far and has folded to every flop bet. I think we can pick up a lot of value when we just check back and then jam on our opponent's flop continuation bet. So I elect to just check in this spot. Our opponent bets 120. That's a pretty big size bet. I know that there's a chance that they're going to be calling off here with such a small stack behind, but I'm getting it all in. I jam the rest of our stack in, and we wind up getting a fold and taking down a pot of over 700,000 with nothing but an ace high and a big draw. Here's another big one that actually happened a little bit before that. You can see our stack size was even smaller. We get an open from the cutoff to 3x. Pocket queens is going to be getting it in here every time. Jam the rest of our stack in, and we get a call from the ace 8. Flop is 3 high, great for the queens. We have to avoid running hearts or aces. There's a 7 of hearts. There's a lot of outs. We are a 75% favorite, and we hit a queen on the river, giving us a full house. That is how our stack got up over 400,000. Nice hand for us there. Same tournament, going back even further. This time we have pocket kings. We now have a little bit more than 6 big blinds in our stack. Let's try to maximize our value here with the kings. Just min raise. Let's see if we can't suck in a few hands that are worse than us and get the rest of our chips in on the flop or turn. We get a jam from the button, get the rest of our chips in up against an ace 9, a lot like the hand we just looked at. Iowa Mike has draws to a straight now. With a 6, we are now 1 from a flush draw, and we wind up hitting our flush and taking down this pot. Those were a lot of the hands that we won, but let's look at some of the hands that we didn't do so well on. This is a Hyper Turbo Mega Stack Tournament, $1,000 guaranteed. We have ace queen offsuit playing from the big blind. You can see our stack is getting down there, and it looks like we are nearing the end of the tournament. We get a bet of a little bit larger than 2x from the cutoff. We get the rest of our stack in with the ace queen. We get a call from an ace 5. We are a 72% favorite, and there of course is a 5 on the flop, and we wind up losing this hand and getting knocked out of that tournament. How about this one that was pretty deep in the tournament? We have ace jack suited. We open to 2x, playing from under the gun +1. Ernie Nuxter jams the rest of their stack in. It is a little bit less than 14,000 for us to make a call here into a pot of 37,000. We are going to be making this call 100% of the time with the ace jack suited, but let's try to isolate it now that we know a kite runner probably doesn't have that strong of a hand since they are just calling here in the small blind. So I jam the rest of our stack in. We do get a fold. We're up against king queen suited. We are a 58% favorite to win this pot of over 50,000 chips. Flop is good for us. King, not so much. And we wind up losing this pot. And now we have pocket tens. Let's see how we could possibly lose this pot. We get an open from under the gun. I get the rest of our chips in with the tens. And we get a call. It's tens against nines. Looking good for us. Flop is great. 10 is awesome on the turn. 9 doesn't even help our opponent anymore. We just have to avoid a 7. Oh, yeah, of course. There's a 7. Pretty standard. One more hand we're going to take a look at is King Queen playing from the big blind. Small blind jams all in. Small blind is very aggressive over the small sample size that we have, so I make the call here with the King Queen. We are playing with about 12 big blinds right here. I make the call. We are dominating our opponent. King Queen against King Jack. We are a 69% favorite. Flop is pretty good. Ace high. We are now an 80% favorite. Now our opponent has some flush draws going into the river and does hit the flush, and we get knocked out of this tournament. That was a pretty rough one, but that pretty much wraps up how our tournament session went. I did mention that we had one final table. That will be the next video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that video. Turn on your notifications by hitting that little bell option. Head down to the video description for links to all the poker products that I use, including Hold'em Manager, which is what I use to review all my poker sessions, as well as for my on-table HUD that I use to analyze the opponents that I'm playing, as well as my own play. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave those comments down below in the comment section. Be back soon with a new final table video, but until then, I'll see you guys out on the virtual felt.